First of all, we all welcome Akansha ma'am for joining us today, and it's our honor to host her today. She is a senior ST at Intuit X TCS, and she has been a tech speaker, a mentor, a hackathon judge, Google Cloud Arcade facilitator, and moreover, she has been featured at uh, Times Square, New York, and Favicon LinkedIn 200. So, yes, ma'am, thank you so much for coming, especially. And yeah, you can start with your intro in detail and can tell us about yourself, and then we can proceed.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. First of all, thank you very much for that great introduction, and thanks to everyone for joining in today. So, as you all know, that today's session is about how to crack into it, right? So, I believe every one of you wants to get a good job or internship in a decent company, right? So I'll come to my introduction in my own words, but before that, what I want you all to do is I just want to know what is your dream company. So if you could just comment down in the chat the name of your dream company and the current semester of your college you are in, so that would be great.
Fastest fingers first round is open. Let's see whose tapping is the fastest.
Yeah, name of your dream company and your college semester. Okay, semester one, Pinterest. All right, very specific. Atlassian, Microsoft. Okay, dream companies Google, Microsoft. Okay, Microsoft, Google, Walmart, Intuit. Okay, we do have people who really want to get a job in Intuit. Good to see that. Okay, fourth semester, sixth semester, fourth semester, fourth semester, sixth semester. Okay, all right. Intuit sixth semester. Okay, right. So, what I am observing is one thing here which is common in the responses that I see here is that every single one of you have written the name of some product company, some good product based company which pays you really well, right? So, today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the strategy that will help you crack your dream product company. And we will talk about some specific pointers about Intuit, going through each of the things that we need for any product based company, right? Having said that, I'll quickly share my screen and let me know once it's visible. Yeah, so is my screen
Yes,
visible?
it's
Can I?
visible.
Okay, all right. And thank you everyone for telling in the chat your aspirations. We'll just a second. Okay, so now to start with, I will quickly give my introduction. Something is hanging. Wait. Yeah, okay. All right. So, like Manik already mentioned, but I'll tell you a couple of things which are not very evident from my LinkedIn profile's headline. So, I'm Akanksha. I started my career from a very basic tier 3 kind of a college in Madhya Pradesh. Just like I see a few students writing tier 3 college names, which we have not heard about a lot. And during my time, TCS was like the only big MNC that visited our campus, and fortunately I was able to secure an on campus placement in TCS, and I worked there for around 2 years, and then I decided to make a switch. So I started my preparation. I wanted to get into a good company, a product based company. So finally, after a few months, I got offers from companies like Morgan Stanley, Intuit, JP Morgan, just to name a few of them. And finally, I joined Intuit as an SD2. And I would say a few months back, I got promoted to a senior software engineer here in Intuit. And along with that, I also take interviews in Intuit for many profiles, including interns, freshers, lateral hires. Also, I keep sharing my learnings on LinkedIn, my experiences, and even some internship and job opportunities, right? So if you feel like, you can connect on LinkedIn too. And having said that, we will move on to the session. So today, what I'm going to tell you all, like I said, we'll talk about how to crack any product-based company, and then we will talk about specific pointers about Intuit. So I'm going to share with you all this 5-step framework that you as a college student can use to secure a job or an internship, right? So the very first step here is learn a programming language, of course. And the thing is, most of you get confused about which language to learn and don't start only. So I would say that learn any language, but just start. Choose any language that you are comfortable with, right? It could be anything. It could be Java. It could be C, C++, anything. But just start. That is what is most important. But still, if you ask me the preferred language, then I will say that either go with Java or Python or C++. So let's say if you learn Java, then you can also use it for development, right? You can build your projects also using Java and learning a framework like Spring or Spring Boot. Let's say you learn Python. So for someone who is learning a programming language for the very first time, Python is very easy, right? Very easy to learn, very easy to code. And additionally, if you plan to explore the field of, let's say, data science or machine learning, then you can definitely go ahead with Python, right? And if you are someone who wants to do competitive coding, then I would say that you should learn C++. But like I said, choose any language. That's not a problem. Language is not a barrier. Companies will allow you to code in any standard language, be it any product based company, be it Intuit. When you get the assessment or you, let's say, get a data structures related questions in the interview, it's okay to code in any language. That is not a criteria to judge you. What matters is how exactly you are solving the problem, your logical abilities, your analytical ability, your problem solving, right? So don't just get stuck with this question that which is the language that I should begin with. You can choose any of these 3 languages. These all 3 of them are good to start. Okay. Then let's talk about the second pointer, which is very, very important, which is about practicing DSA. And I know you would have heard this hundreds of times. Everyone keeps telling practice DSA, practice DSA. But let me tell you how exactly to practice DSA and from where you can practice DSA, right? So for the how part, number one thing is you need to understand the basics of data structures. For example, you have arrays. Similarly, you have stacks, you have queues, you have linked list. Learn about these data structures, then try to create programs to implement these data structures, right? Then you can learn about the time complexity, space complexity, how to analyze the time and space complexity, how you can optimize your code to solve the same problem in, let's say, lesser time or space, right? Because generally what happens in technical interviews, when you give a solution, let's say you start with a brute force approach, which is taking some n square time, then the interviewer will ask you to optimize it further. So if you are not aware of the complexity analysis, then it's very difficult to reach to a point where you are able to provide an optimal solution, right? So once you're familiar with the data structures, the various use cases that they have, then you can move on to the algorithms like dynamic programming, problems on greedy approach. So basically, you can spend at least 1 month to learn the basic concepts, to understand them deeply. And we just go and jump on DSA questions and think that, okay, we will learn everything side by side, but it doesn't work that way. Okay, so don't just go and start solving some questions on a particular topic. Go learn in a very structured and systematic way. Start with arrays. As you can see here, you have to go topic wise. You start with arrays, learn a little bit about strings, then do a little bit of recursion, searching, sorting. Then you can move towards stacks, queues, linked list. Then comes your trees, DP, graphs, all these kinds of things, right? So move in a very structured approach. First, understand why this problem is using a stack, right? Is there any other way of solving the same problem? Why a specific data structure is used in this problem? Okay, things like that you have to understand, and only then go ahead and move on to the next topic. So now when you want to start practicing DSA, how will you practice? Start with easy and medium questions first. Don't jump to hard questions and say that, oh, I'm not able to solve DSA, right? If you're not able to solve medium questions also, you can skip medium questions too. Start with easy questions, cover the questions of all the topics one by one, and see, it's important to keep on coding every day and stay consistent. Okay. It's, the thing is that if you practice every day, eventually you solve some questions every day. Let's say even 3 questions every day if you solve in a month, if you see 3 questions every day is around 30 questions in a month of 30 days, right? So within a few months you would have solved some 506 questions if you target around 6 months, correct? So what is important is to stay consistent and start practicing. Make it a habit that you will practice every day, right? And now let's come to the resources that you can follow. Some people again have this question that should I choose GFG or should I choose Lead Code or Hacker Rank or whatever. So again, see, whichever platform you want to choose, it does not matter. You can choose whichever you are comfortable with. If you want to solve difficulty wise questions of a topic, then you can do that in both the platforms. And if you want to solve company wise questions, then you can put the specific company tag in GFG, and then all the questions related to that company will come, right? And then the next thing is, once you are a little bit familiar with the basic data structures and you have solved a couple of problems on them, then comes the point where you can start giving some contexts. Okay, you can start giving contests on Lead Code. Once you have started practicing easy questions and some medium level questions, then I would say try for contest. That is the right time when you can actually start giving contest. And you might not be able to solve the questions initially, but it will help you understand how in a small span of time you have to come up with the solutions. This will help you to time your solutions. Okay, and once you have reached that level where you are able to solve hard questions also, then you can try competitive programming on platforms like Codeforces. Again, this is not a must have, it's not necessary for cracking your dream company, but it's good if you are able to do that. It will help you only to enhance your DSA skills further, right? So having said that, is there any question on any of these topics related to the language or related to DSA? Just type it in the chat and we can take some of the questions before we move further. We will have a dedicated Q&A at the end as well, but if there are any questions, let's at least type them in the chat. I'll take a pause and give 1 minute of time to see if there are any questions. If not, then we will continue. Which article or page should we refer for DSA learning? Okay. Again, like I said, when you want to start off, there is this channel by Take You Forward, where a lot of concepts have been explained. That is one thing you can refer to. There is a channel by Kunal Kushwaha. That is another channel you can refer to. And there is a channel by Anuj Sharma. These are some of the YouTube channels that you can refer to if you are someone who wants to watch tutorials, right? If not, if you really want to go and read about it, then again, there is a book on algorithms. There is a book called CorePen, and that is a good book that you can read. Again, for data structures, also your college curriculum would have recommended some books. Definitely, you can go through those textbooks. Along with that, if you want something in a very concise way, then GFG articles are really good. Let's say you want to learn about stacks, okay? So you can open that article section for stacks. They will tell you about push operation, pop operation, how stack is implemented internally using arrays. They will also give you the code for these operations. And then you will also find some important questions. So a little bit of questions you can solve there itself, right? So that is one of the resource I would say that you can use to learn when you are a beginner. After that, let's say when you start practicing questions, so related to coding, I would say when you code your solution, what more you can do is go to that Lead Code discuss section where other people have also solved their questions. See what different they have done. Even if they have written the same solution, have they written in an optimized way? Can you do better than what you have currently done? This is something that will help you enhance your programming skills as well, right? So to start with, you can refer to either some of the YouTube video tutorials or some textbook or the GFG articles. And after that, once you start coding, Lead Code discuss section, I think, is very helpful. How much time should we spend on thinking on a particular problem specifically? Good question. This is again a question that I keep getting by a lot of students, that how much time should I really spend. So see, what happens is in interview specifically, I'll tell you the expected time duration is like 20 to 25 minutes for one question. You are expected to think of the solution, code the solution within 25 to 20 to 25 minutes. All right. So you have to develop your thinking capability and your coding skills in such a way that you are able to write the entire solution, run it, and give the correct solution, pass all the test cases within 20 to 25 minutes. Now, how exactly will you do it? Let's say you are a complete beginner, you just started coding. So let's say you see a question. Spend first 5 to 10 minutes on thinking about, how exactly you can solve it. Maybe you can do some rough work there, right? Thinking about the question. Once you're able to think of the solution, that okay, this is the way I can implement it, start with the coding, right? Then if 5 to 10 minutes you are spending on thinking and the rest 10 to 15 minutes you are spending on coding, definitely you can do it in 20 to 25 minutes. Now, the second case where let's say you spend 5-10 minutes to think, still you are not able to think of any solution, then maybe within the 7th or 8th minute you go ahead and take that hint, right? There are hints when you are solving on some specific platforms, right? You can go and take that hint. After taking that hint, spend another, let's say, 7 minutes. So total 15 minutes you can spend to think of the solution. Let's say after taking the hint, you are able to come up with a solution that okay, this is something how I can do it. Again, you will have some 10 minutes left to code it up, right? Now comes the third case where let's say you thought for around 7-8 minutes, then you took the hint, around 15 minutes have passed and still you're not able to come up with a solution. You spent even more time, let's say around 30 minutes you have spent, right, in thinking, but you're not able to think anything. So after a span of 30 minutes, if you're not able to think anything, either two things will happen. You're able to think of a brute force solution, then again same thing, you go and type it, code it up, see if you're able to run it completely. If you're not able to think of anything, then after 30 minutes I would say just go and watch some tutorial or just go through the editorial and understand that problem, and then maybe make some notes around it, that this is the problem that I solved, I was not able to solve it, and this is how it is actually being solved, this is the brute force approach, this is the optimal approach, time complexity, space complexity, everything you can note down, right? So when you're doing it for the first time, it's okay to spend, let's say, 45 minutes to 1 hour on any question when it's your first time, right? But slowly and steadily, like I said, the more you practice, the more you will be able to think faster, the more you will be able to code faster, and eventually your total time you have to bring down to 20 to 25 minutes. That is what your target should be. All right. Right. I am currently in my third year and have majorly focused on development till now. Okay, but now I want to do DSA as the placement season and fourth year is approaching. So what should be the ideal path for it? So Srishti, have you done DSA, at least a little bit of DSA before, or would it be the very first time when you are starting off with DSA? If it's the very first time, yeah, Srishti, just answer that, and in the meantime I will take some other question. Yes, I have done the basics. Okay, when you say basics, is it like you have just understood the implementation and all, or have you also solved some problems on arrays, strings, let's say till linked list? Basic syntaxes only. Okay, all right. So see, again, for your case, like I said, the strategy that I was telling you, go through the implementation, right? Understand how every data structure is implemented, then just do the analysis of the time complexity, space complexity, right? Then you can actually start practicing using these platforms, solving some easy to medium questions, and then move on to DP, greedy, these kind of advanced topic. Now, considering the point that you have a very limited amount of time, you're already in third year, which means that your fourth year is going to start in some time. So what I would say is, again, generally what happens is the companies start visiting the campus, right? In the later half, let's say around September or August, right? So right now we have May, June, July, August, September. At least 5 months you can think that you have in hands. So like I was saying, that every day, even if you spend time solving 3 to 4 questions, it's like some 500 questions in a span of 5 months. So you have a very good amount of time in your hand to solve DSA. Again, the approach is going to remain the same. You will go, let's say, we'll talk about Stack once again. You will go, let's say on YouTube, you will watch some tutorial on Stack. Okay, this is the way Stack has been implemented. Then you will go start solving some problems, easy medium level questions you will solve, and make some notes that okay, this is the problem I solved, this is how I approached it. Then move on to queues. Again, go watch some tutorials around queues, that okay, this is the implementation, this is the time complexity, space complexity. Come back, solve some questions on that, make some notes on that, and do this for every topic, at least till trees. I think you should be able to do. And after that, come back every weekend. What you will do is every weekend, whatever you have done over the week, go back and revise all those questions, so that it's not like that I'm learning new things and forgetting the older ones, right? So over the weekends you revise everything, and I think going in a systematic way, 5 months is a very good span of time that you can use to learn all the DSA. And if you want a very much dedicated plan, I have put some reels on Instagram, I think, where I have prepared a 3-month plan, 4-month plan, and added it there, right? You can go through that plan also, just to see that how much time you can give to every topic and cover it up and move ahead. For that is specifically designed for placement, so maybe that is something you can go and see, right? So guys, what we will do is now we will move on to the third thing, and then I will take the questions in the later half. Okay.
Yes, it
Okay.
will be good, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So now coming to the step third, which is your projects and internships. So see, you have to learn development also along with DSA. So a lot of you again have this question that should I do DSA or should I do development, correct? I get such questions many a times. Then again, the answer is you have to do both. There is no shortcut, there is no escape, because DSA is helpful for cracking the coding rounds of product companies. But there will be technical rounds of interviews as well, right? Where you will be asked about the projects you did or the internships you did, the tech stack you have used, right? So to answer these type of questions, you should also do development. Now in development, what can you do? You can go for web development, you can do app development, or you can do something related to AI, ML, or there are multiple other fields like, let's say, cloud computing, cyber security, in case you want to explore them. But I think, like, if you ask me what exactly should we take up to create a project, so I think instead of revolving around all these fancy terms, for a basic level projects which are related to web development or a simple backend development project, either it could be using Java as backend or MERN stack, this is something you can build. Or let's say you want to explore some data analyst or data scientist kind of a role, and not really a software engineering role, then you can try to create projects in AI, ML, or data science. Okay. So once you have done some 1 or 2 projects in any of these areas, then you can think of exploring other domains, right? But basically start with some web development, learn at least one stack. It could be MERN, Mean, or Java Spring Boot, or Python Flask, Django, whatever it is, but learn one stack thoroughly. Okay. And again, even if you use Java Spring Boot, then you will have to learn a little bit of database connectivity at least, and a little bit of front end at least, so that you can showcase your project, right? So that is about your projects. Then also try to get internships, because internships are like a proof of concept. Now the question is that where you will get an internship. Some of the students are in second semester, some are starting in first semester as well. So for them, students just think that only IT companies are where you can go and intern. So let me tell you, you can try for internships in not just the top tech product based companies, you can also try in some startups. Even startups will give you good exposure of how things work in the industry. Along with that, there are some government organizations. These organizations also give you internships. For example, if you know BHEL, ISRO, right? So you can check their websites also. Recently, in the month of March, only a lot of internships are opened. Some of them ended in the month of April. The forms have closed. A couple of them might be still open till May, I think. But you can go and check the website. So government organizations, IITs, NITs, these are some other places where you can go and try for internships, right? And apart from projects and internships, there are many other things that you can do. Like, you can also participate in hackathons, as this will give you an opportunity to do something new, explore something new, and help to come with new ideas. And even many companies hire through hackathons, so it's a great opportunity that you should not miss out on. For example, Flipkart Grid is there, right? Many women specific hirings also happen, like for Walmart, Accenture, many companies, they do some of these kind of hiring. So try to apply for all these as well to increase your chances of getting an internship and eventually converting it into a PPO, right? So hackathons is one way. Then another thing is, you can attend some tech meetups to do networking or attend webinars like these, which is currently happening. Let's say which your college is organizing, any community is organizing, right? To get insights from people who are actually working in the tech industry, who are actually working in the good companies where you aspire to work for, right? Then there are programs by Microsoft like MLSA. There are programs by Google like the Arcade Facilitator program, and a lot of other programs. You can contribute to open source like in the programs like GSOC, Outreachy, a lot of them. So if you see, there are a lot of things to do, but the bare minimum that is expected is you do some quality projects, you do some internships that you can showcase in your resume. Once you are done with this, then you can think about open source, hackathons, all these kind of things as well, right? So now let's move on to the next pointer, which is computer science fundamentals. So see, a major mistake that we make in our college is not focusing on the college curriculum. So let me share the interviewer's perspective on this. You are coming as a fresher, okay? So I don't expect anything out of the box from you. I just expect you to have good problem solving skills, good analytical abilities, good logical reasoning, and a good foundation of computer science subjects, okay? Now in computer science fundamentals, what specifically do interviewers look for? You could be questioned on OOPS, okay? You could be questioned on DBMS. Maybe we can ask you to write some queries, speak about joins, keys, all these kind of things, okay? Operating systems, computer networks. So do go through these subjects, read textbooks or watch videos, depends on you, whichever medium you prefer, but make some proper notes that you can revise every time that you go for an interview, right? That's very much important for a quick revision. Now this is about your computer science subjects, that these four are primarily the ones that you should focus on and prepare in depth. Along with that, also prepare for aptitude and reasoning to clear the online assessments, because there are some companies which along with DSA also have some aptitude related questions in their online assessments. So these online assessments may not always be a coding assessment for all the companies. So that's why this is also something that you should focus on as a part of the fundamentals, okay? Now let's move on to the fifth step of the 5-step framework. Let's say you have prepared one programming language, you have prepared DSA, you have also made projects, you have done internships. Now how exactly to present that? For that you have to create a good resume, because even after doing all of this, I keep hearing that my resume is not getting shortlisted. So number one thing is you need to choose a proper template to make your resume ATS friendly. What I mean by a proper template, that I will be showing you in the next slide. But before that, let me tell you some important pointers for the resume. So number one thing is your resume should include your contact details. And when I say contact details, you do not have to go and add your address over there. You do not have to give me your family details, right? Always you can mention your email address and your mobile number at the top. Then your resume should also contain the links to your LinkedIn profile and some of the coding profile links, okay? After that, what will you write in your resume? You can create a small summary followed by your internships. Next will come your projects. Then you can put your skills, education, and in the very end you can put an achievement section. So for your projects, it's always better to have clickable links, so that if someone wants to see if you have really done this work, he or she could be able to see it. And another important point is that highlight the technology used in the project by making it bold. Whatever you think you have used, write it in bold. Use bullet points wherever possible when you are describing your project or internship, because see, no one likes to really go and read long paragraphs. I have seen resumes which will describe in depth about their project or their experience, and believe me, no one is going to read that. So it's better that you write some 2 or 3 pointers. Again, when I say pointers, it should not be like 5 or 6 pointers you are filling up for one experience only. 3 is the maximum, I would say. 2 or 3 is a good number to have points in your experience, right? So this is the thing. In case you are from a good college, this education section is something you can put after the summary section, and then you can start with internships, projects, and skills. But for someone who is coming from a tier 2 or 3 college, definitely your resume should focus more around the internships and projects that you have done, and the education can come at the later part, right? So putting it at the top helps you drive your interview in such a way that the discussion happens around your internships or your projects rather than seeing and talking about anything related to your education, right? So now let me show you what is a good resume. So you see this one, this I would say is a good resume. Now, why do I say it is a good resume? So see, you have your name written here, then you have your LinkedIn profile, you have your contact number, the coding profile is also present, email, not exactly the coding profile, but at least the GitHub link is present, right? So everything that is needed is present here. Let's say you also have a portfolio website, so that is also something you can put here. If you don't have, then you can maybe give your coding profile link, right? But at least make sure that something you have given here that the interviewer can go and have a quick check to see, okay, what exactly you have done related to coding. So then in your experience section, what you can do is you can put internships here in place of experience. And in internships, what you will do is you will put some quantifiable achievements in bullet points. Let's say you see here there's some 3 points for every experience this person has put. Obviously it's a resume of a person who has some 2+ years of experience, so that person has mentioned about his experience. So you will name this section as internships, and then you will again write the company where you're interning or the organization, and you will write about your role, the tenure, right, and the place of internship, and write around 3 pointers around that, what exactly you did there. Okay. Then there is this project section. Again, this should be in a bullet pointed fashion, highlighting your role, your contribution, the tech stack that you have used. Here you see that nothing has been highlighted. That is something which is wrong in this resume. If someone wants to have a quick look, let's say this Postgres, REST API, React, these are some of the things that could have been highlighted, right, for better visibility. Okay. Then in your education, when you are writing this, remember that do it in a reverse chronological order. What you have done last should come first. In education, your college will come first, then your 12th, then your 10th. So after that, at the end, we have this technical skill section. So here you see the skill section is also very well organized into languages, frameworks, developer tools. Libraries is something that you can skip. So whatever languages you are aware of, right, you can write here. Then corresponding to that language, let's say you are good in Java, you can mention Spring Boot here. Let's say you are doing JavaScript and all, HTML, CSS, React will come here. So you can have separate sections like languages, frameworks. After that, whatever you have used, like VS Code, any other IDE, GitHub you have used, right? Any cloud that you would have used, anything that you think is significant, you can have a section like developer tools. You can mention it there. Another thing for you all, since you are in college, one more section could be your CS fundamentals. So either you can add them here, or you can add them in your technical skills, where you can write things like data structures, algorithms, OOPS, DBMS, computer networks, all the important subjects that I listed in the previous slide, right? So that you can mention here with a separate section of CS fundamentals. And lastly, you can have a small section for soft skills, where you can write problem solving, analytical ability, logical reasoning, communication skills, a little bit about yourself, which skills that you think are suitable for you, which talk about you, right? Finally, the achievement section. Why I'm talking about an achievement section? Because here you can quickly go and tell that, okay, I'm 5-star at this particular platform, something like that. Okay, I have solved these many problems. That also number you can put there. But you can also put about the certifications that you have done, or any coursework that you would have done, any workshop that you might have attended or even organized. So these kind of things come in your in your achievement section. So achievements can include all the co-curricular activities, certifications, any achievement, anything that you think is significant, which will help you stand out, or which could be a topic of discussion specifically in the HR round, that you can put in the achievement section. All right. The link to this resume is provided here. If you want, you can download it from here and edit it directly. This was about how a good resume looks like. Again, this also has a few missing points that I told you, which you can add. Now let us talk about what not to do, because that is even more important. So you see this colorful template. This is something you should not use. So I was talking about a proper template. A proper template has 2 to 3 colors, like let's say white and black, or simply white, black and blue. But here you see multiple type of colors have been used. Second thing is the graphical elements, like having a photo or figures like this makes it difficult for your resume to get scanned by the ATS. And one thing is that if you're applying on campus, then maybe you would not be bothered a lot, because in on-campus placements, what happens is initially you're giving an online coding assessment. After you clear that, then your technical rounds of interview happen, where the interviewer directly sees your resume, right? There is no scanning by an ATS system that is happening, correct? So it's okay to use any kind of template there, but again, make sure it is clean and has proper formatting, right? Just like we saw in the previous slide. But if you're planning to apply off campus, then definitely this kind of template you have to avoid, because it is not very much ATS friendly. And I hope everyone knows what an ATS is, right? Can I quickly get to know in the chat? Everyone knows what an ATS is, or anyone who does not know, feel free to write no. Anushka, we will take questions around Intuit, what kind of questions and all are asked. I'll cover that, but let me just complete this last slide around resume and LinkedIn. Everyone knows what ATS is, application tracking system. Okay, right. So I see. Okay, everyone knows already. Fine. So this is basically not every time there is a recruiter sitting and going through your resume. Most of the companies use an ATS. So it's a software that scans your resume. If it finds such a resume, this kind of resume, it is very difficult to scan. Okay. And one more thing which is wrong in this resume is judging yourself. Why you want to rate yourself and your skills, right? Let the interviewer decide that for you. Okay. So don't use these kind of templates to create a resume, right? So moving on to the LinkedIn part, I'll quickly cover LinkedIn part, and then I'll move towards the interview process, which we follow here in Intuit, and we will talk Intuit specific questions. Okay. So about LinkedIn, a very, very important resource in today's time is LinkedIn. And I myself have received a majority of calls from top companies from my LinkedIn profile itself. So optimization is very, very necessary. So how do you do that? So what you can do is add a professional photograph of yours, create your about me section properly. Ask yourself how many of you have crafted your about me section properly, talking about your skills, projects, and included your coding profiles there. If not, maybe today itself you go and update it. Okay. Then definitely you should add your projects, your education qualifications and skills in the respective sections. And these are some of the things that I know most of you would already know, and you already hear from a lot of people. So let me talk about some important things that get missed out. One important thing is the featured section in your LinkedIn. So use this to include your notable achievements. You can add your important certificates for anything that you want to highlight. Let's say you have won some competition. Okay, if you have achieved some badge, anything that you think is important and will attract the attention of someone who is viewing your profile, add it to the featured section, right? Someone may not really see your entire profile, but if something is there in the featured section with an image, most likely it's going to be seen, right? Some people, what they do is their lead code screenshot, either in their LinkedIn header section itself they will put it, or in their featured section they will put it. Your resume is also something that you can just go and put it in your featured section. So let's say if some recruiters comes to your LinkedIn profile, he or she has your resume too very much handy. Okay. Then the next thing is try to be a little active on LinkedIn, connect with the employees and recruiters of your target companies, because it will help your profile to get recommended to other recruiters also. Let's say if you have connections with recruiters. And why is it important to connect with the employees? So when you want an internship or when you're looking for a job, you can ask for a referral and also ask questions about the company, its projects or products, whatever. So it's important to connect with some of the employees working in the companies that you're targeting and the recruiters beforehand only. Don't just start sending requests when you are in need of a referral, when an opportunity has come, because at that time what happens is there would be, like, for me, let's say I would be receiving hundreds of other requests, and it's very likely that yours will get missed out. So it's better that you make connections early on itself, right? uh, so this is basically the 5-step framework that I have followed. For me, since I was interviewing for a SD2 role, so system design was also needed additionally, right? But nowadays companies also ask a little bit of system design to freshers also. So have some basic understanding of concepts like scalability, availability, and be aware of your project's end-to-end architecture, right? So now I will briefly talk about the interview process. So what happens is, for any company, typically the interview process looks like there will be an online assessment, and then there will be technical round of interview, maybe 1 or 2 rounds, and finally there would be a managerial or HR round discussion. Okay. So specifically, if I talk about Intuit, listen this very carefully, because we are here to talk about Intuit interview process. So what happens is, in Intuit, the first round is online assessment. Here you will get 4 questions that you are supposed to solve in a 90 minutes time frame. Okay. So that is how the first round happens. After that, the shortlisting, whatever applications are shortlisted from the first round, there are 2 further rounds of discussion, technical rounds of interviews. In the first round, again, mostly you can expect questions on DSA. What is the level of DSA? I will say lead code medium to hard, and even some competitive programming. If you do, that would be great for clearing the online assessments. Definitely, if you do some amount of competitive programming, it would be great. It will help you, time your solutions and solve 4 questions in a span of 90 minutes. Then the second, yeah, thank you, Kavya. So in the technical round of interview, like I was saying, the first round will again be on the basis of DSA, right? So here you can have lead code medium to hard questions. There can be questions on dynamic programming, greedy approach, graphs, right? So make sure, if you are targeting a company which is very much similar to FANG level, you cannot just think that, okay, I'll do it till medium lead code, or I can just do till trees and that should be sufficient. No, you have to cover all the advanced topics. You have to cover hard level questions also, right? So first round would majorly focus on DSA once again. Then the second round of interview is around your projects, right? Your past experiences, if you have done any internship, basically mostly around the tech stack you have worked on, and to test whether you are a good fit for the company or not. So these kind of things happen, right? You can think of it more like a HR, a techno managerial round, I would say, right? So again, if the manager is very much technical, they might again ask you a DSA question, but generally what happens is the discussion is around your project and the tech stack you have worked on and things you have written in your resume, right? So better prepared for that. And yeah, definitely lastly, there is offer release, which happens with the discussion after a discussion with the HR, right? Yeah, Anushka, there is no aptitude in the OA round for Intuit. That's correct. But again, like I said, that I have made this PPT a very generic one. So there are companies which, let's say, ask MCQs also in the online assessment, which ask aptitude also in the online assessment. That's why I've put it here, so that you don't miss out on it. But for Intuit specifically, yes, there is no aptitude. Okay. Having said that, one last thing is that your CGPA also matters. So make sure that you maintain a decent CGPA, so that you're not in a position that you're not eligible only to sit for a company. Okay, 7+ should be okay for most of the companies. 7.5 is even better, and if you can maintain it above 8 or 8.5, then it's even great. And lastly, what I would say is this framework that I have shared with you all. These are some of the companies from where I got calls using this framework, right? So I hope that it worked for me and it will work for you all too. Having said that, maybe we have around 10 minutes left, so let's cover all the Q&A. And in case you want to connect, you think you have any further question that you want to take on 1:1, you can feel free to connect on Instagram or LinkedIn, wherever you are comfortable with. So I'll quickly scroll through the questions and I'll try to answer them.
Ma'am, I have questions. Can I ask on mic?
Okay, Aishwarya, let's do one thing. Let me take the questions from the chat because some of the students have already, written their questions down there. After that, we'll take your question, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Which article or page should we refer? I think this is covered. How much time should we spend? This is also done, okay? How to get an optimal solution, as I'm able to get a brute force approach but not the optimal any technique. Okay, so see Haritha, the thing is that reaching to the optimal solution is something that will come with practice only. There is no shortcut to it. Like I said, solve as many problems as you can. After solving, let's say, some 300-400 problems, you will yourself be able to figure out things, because then you reach at a point where you are able to recognize the patterns, that okay, this is the kind of question, definitely I have to use two pointer approach here, or this is the kind of question I definitely need to use sliding window. Or for a specific kind of question, let's say hash map is something that I will use, or let's say stack is something that I will use, or these kind of things you start recognizing, and there is no shortcut to it. There are some problems where the optimal solution involves a specific type of algorithm. So for these questions, definitely it's important that you know the optimal solution beforehand, right? And that's why again it's important to practice a lot of problems, and that is how it will come with practice. Okay, I'm currently in the third year, I think. Yeah, this is also covered from Srishti. Arushi, I think about the internships and all, I have covered where and all you can try and what all type of uh, projects you can make. Ma'am, can we add the existing projects on YouTube in our resume? Yeah, Ramya. This is again a common question which a lot of you also might be having, I think. So, see, what happens is, if you're adding a project directly from the YouTube, a clone kind of project, don't just write in your resume that a clone of e-commerce website or a clone of Amazon or a clone of Netflix, right? You can definitely add it, but on top of that, just your first line, when you talk about your project section, your first line should talk about what the project is about and what tech stack you have used to build it. The second and third line can talk about the features that you have worked on, which will specifically highlight your role in the project, right? So in your second line, maybe you can mention about some specific feature that was already existing in the project. In the third line, what you can do is you can build something on top of the project that you copied, which will help it to stand out. Okay, so that is one thing that you can do, that even if you're copying it, just make some changes from your side, some extra features you can add on top of it, and then showcase it in your resume. All right. Is system design important for internship? Is there So no, Catherine, system design is not important for a fresher. Definitely, like I said, very basic topics, like for example, you have written a piece of code, you have to make sure that it is modularized, it is clean, and it is following the best coding practices. How you are naming your variables, your methods, all these kind of things are being looked at. Are you following the oops concepts or not? These are the things that are looked at from a fresher's perspective. The thing is, for let's say your technical round of interview is going on, there maybe the interviewer can ask you to talk about the end-to-end architecture of your project, where you will be asked about questions like, maybe if you have chosen a particular type of database, then why have you chosen it, right? Let's say you have chosen a NoSQL based database, so why have you chosen a NoSQL database? Why did not you go with a relational database? These kind of questions can come. So very basics, right? You will not really be asked to do LLD, low level design, or high level design, but you can be asked to definitely answer questions around how, let's say, you will scale your code, how you will make it extensible. So very basic concept you can learn. How you will troubleshoot if something breaks in the production environment. These kind of basic questions you can learn. Okay. Yeah, Anushka, like I covered the system design part. And prerequisites, like I told you, Siddhi, if you really want to go ahead and learn system design, then first of all, cover OOPS, learn any programming language, then cover your design patterns, then solid principles. After that, you start with UML diagram creation, which will help you solve LLD problems, and finally you can go till HLD. But again, as a fresher, that is not the expectation from you that you will design UML diagrams and all, but again you should be aware of the basic design patterns, you should be aware of Hoof's concept, you should be aware of the end-to-end architecture of your project that you have added in your resume. All right, applicant tracking system and all, yeah, this we have already covered. Aptitude is not included. All right. Which project is preferred more, personal or group project? Okay, see Pooja, it doesn't matter whether it is a personal project or a group project. Let's say for personal project, for sure you have worked on the back end, front end, database connectivity, everything. If let's say it is dealing with Monstack, for example, right? So you can write 2-3 pointers that, okay, this is how I use this database to do this, or this is how I use this particular language to do this. I made these kind of API calls, I optimize this, whatever things you can write. Let's say it's a group project and you have worked on a very specific portion of it. Let's say you were handling the backend. So in your resume, what you will do, you will mention about the project. In the very first line, again, you can talk about the tech stack and you will talk about what the project is about. But the second and third pointer, like I said, is about your role, what you have exactly done in the project. So when you're explaining it to the interviewer also, you will talk about that, okay, this is the project, this is how we have built it, and I have mostly worked on this part, right? So that interviewer also knows that, okay, this is the section where he or she can question you on. All right, so it's perfectly fine even if it's a good project. Just highlight that, okay, this is the part that I have worked on. Okay, I think Aishwarya, right? You wanted
Yes,
to ask
ma'am.
something, maybe. Yeah, maybe we can take up your question now.
Ma'am, I am in the second year currently, and as of till now, I have not achieved good success in hackathons. Like I have participated in many hackathons, but I did not got first rank also. But just I got the experience. So for now, in my resume, I do not have any ranks to add, but I have added hackathon experience, means like a title, and then I listed up all the hackathon names in which I have participated. So is it good, or I should remove that section?
Okay. Aishwarya, like you said that you have not really won any hackathon. So what I would say, rather than adding a specific section highlighting the hackathons, you can just put that in one line in your achievement section itself. Right? If you have won some hackathon, then it makes sense that you create a hackathon section and you write that, okay, runner up or winner of this, 2-3 pointers like that where you have actually won. So if you have
Yes.
not won, you can just put it in one single line that these are the hackathons I have participated in the achievement section. Don't have a specific section for it and unnecessarily highlight it, right?
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah.
Ma'am, and
Okay.
also I have added one topic, means one this bullet point, that is social work for society. So should I keep that point?
Definitely you can keep that in the achievement section itself, but keep that at the later stage. Your achievement section, first of all, it should talk about the things related to coding that you have done, right? Maybe your rankings and all, then your hackathons and all, you can put certifications, workshops, those things you can put, any open source contribution, whatever you have done. And at the end, you can talk about these kind of things that, you're a part of the cultural club of your college, or the social work that you are doing. All these initiatives you can write in the later section. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you, ma'am.
No problem. Any other question that someone wants to ask? Yes, Siddhi, I see you have raised hands.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for taking my question. So, firstly, like I'm doing currently competitive programming. I just wanted to ask, like, is it important, like, there is any questions that has been asked on CP in top product-based companies, or what kind of system design questions would be there for that? Because as I'm done with basic DSA and solve medium level questions on lead code, so I'm done with that. But right now I'm focusing on hard level questions on code forces and lead code. So what could be there for solving them in a more better and optimal way?
Okay. So number one thing, let me cover the system design part first. Like I already told you, let's say you're targeting, since most of you said that you're targeting Google, Microsoft, these kind of companies, even Intuit, we don't really ask system design to freshers if you're looking for an internship opportunity, right? The entire interview is mostly focused on DSA. correct? So that is one thing. So don't go in depth in the system design thing. What all things are necessary for you that I already covered, right? Know about your project, its architecture, and a little bit of questions about your choices for choosing a specific kind of thing in your project, okay? And write the code properly. Like I said, your code should look clean, whatever you write. Now coming to the DSA part, since we have already done the basics of DSA, right? Lead code and all medium level you have done. The reason for doing competitive programming is that sometimes what happens is no one is really going to ask you that, okay, this is merge intervals question, solve it for me. Right? This is not how you get questions in interview. There will be a problem made around it, a story made around it, right? Maybe it will talk about some platforms or some processors or some room where some events are getting organized, and then you have to arrange them, right? So that these kind of things, right? Some of them have conflicting times. These kind of things. Basically, a storyline is built around the question. So what competitive programming helps you is understanding and decoding these kind of things faster, right? That's why it's important. It's not like a question directly from competitive programming is going to be asked. It's not like that. Question would be basic level only, lead code medium to hard level. It's just that the way it would be asked, you would be able to understand it properly if you do competitive programming. And again, the second part, like I said, that you will be able to do it in a lesser time frame also, right? So that is why you're doing competitive programming. It's great. And yeah, any other question you had? System design I covered, and why competitive programming, what kind of questions also I covered, right?
Yes, ma'am. You have covered it. Thank you,
Oh,
ma'am.
all right, Siddhi, yeah. I think Catherine has also raised her hand. We are already over time, so maybe last one or two questions we will take, and then maybe we can wind up, okay? Yeah, Catherine.
Yes, ma'am. My doubt is like, ma'am, I'm currently doing DSA in Java. I know OOPS concepts. So in some questions they implement collection framework also, like array list and all. So is it necessary for me to know the core Java also? Like, should I focus on core Java?
Definitely, Catherine. When I say learn a programming language, if you are doing C++, STL is the most important part that you will be using in a lot of questions in DSA. Similarly, if you are coding in Java, collections is the most important part. Be it hash map, hash set, array list, you will be using it at multiple places. So make sure you have learned the collections part before you actually start doing the DSA thing, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's say for Java, I'll tell you briefly OOPS concepts you have already covered. Exception handling, your loops and all, for loops and all, which will be useful in pattern kind of questions that you have to do properly. Then collections frameworks definitely is important. Since you also talk about Java, maybe in the interview there could be questions around Java 8 stream APIs and all, so learn that as well. Multi-threading is another area that you can prepare, okay? But yeah, definitely, like the question is around whether you have to do collections or not. Yes, definitely, it's very important to do.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. One more question, ma'am. Ma'am, how many projects do we need to include in our resume at the time of internship?
Okay, so have you already done any internship before?
No, ma'am, not yet.
No.
I'm in second year.
Okay, all right. So generally, if you have, the rule that I follow is that if a student has not done any internship, then it's better to mention 3 projects, right? And if you have done any internship, then you can mention 1 internship and 2 projects. So that is how you can do. Just 3 things, make sure you put. 1 could be internship, 2 could be project. Since you have not done anything, in your case, you can put 3 projects.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Let's take one last question and then maybe we can wrap it up, I believe. Vanshika has a question. Okay, Vanshika, maybe we will take up yours.
Thank you for the session, ma'am. So, ma'am, my question is, can I use Python for DSA? As like, ma'am, some people suggest like you should not do Python for DSA, but like right now I'm in first year, and in my program, the first language or the second language was Python. So I want to ask.
Yeah, definitely, Vanshika. Like I covered in the very first step of the five-step framework, that your language is not a barrier at all. You can definitely write code in Python. The only thing is, if you are targeting something like competitive programming, we all know that code executes faster in C++. There you can, if you're really, you just want to showcase that, okay, I have this much rank on Codeforce's platform and all, there C++ is preferred. But other than that, there is no issue in writing code in Python if you're targeting any internship or any company, Nowadays I also see many students writing code in Python. That's perfectly fine, there is no issue with that. If you're comfortable with Python, you have already started with it, you can definitely go ahead with it. Okay,
Or
now
ma'am,
let me
if like I choose competitive programming in later part. Right now I'm in first year only. So what I can do is like right now starting with Python in DSA, and then later on if I can switch the language and do that competitive part, because like ma'am, concepts are the same only in
exactly.
language, just the implementation differs.
Exactly, exactly. Very well said, Vanshika. See, for everyone in the session, like Vanshika said, the concepts that any programming language is using are more or less the same, right? So it does not matter whichever language you are starting with. And Vanshika, for your case, I would say that yes, go ahead with Python, do DSA in it. And I would say that before you actually go and start competitive programming, just build one or two projects, maybe using Python or Java, whatever language you choose there, or Monstack, whatever you want. Then maybe you can learn a little bit of C++ if you think that okay, I want to optimize my solution further, so that it needs little lesser time, some things like that. So yeah, definitely that is a good idea, Vanshika, you can go ahead with it.
And ma'am, just one thing, like ma'am, can you guide for the project work in Python? Like if you can give little bit information about it.
Hmm. Yeah, Vanshika. So for that, help me understand what is the kind of role you are targeting. You want to go into the data roles like data analyst, data engineer, or you are targeting SD roles?
Right now, I've not thought about it.
Yeah.
I've not given a thought about it.
Hmm. Okay. So I will tell you what this is for everyone. Listen carefully. So let's say you build one project. Okay. In that project, what you do, let's say you are building something with Monstack. Okay, just a very basic example. When you are building something using Monstack, you have already covered the front end using React. Then you have also covered the back end. Then you have also established the data connectivity, database connectivity. So it's more like you have done something related to full stack. Now the thing is, on top of it, what you can do is, if you want to apply some AI ML concept as well in the same project, let's say it's a very basic e-commerce website. In that e-commerce website, what you can build is a chatbot. Rather than having a chatbot as a separate project in your resume, what you can do is that okay, this is the e-commerce website I built, and on top of it, I have built this recommendation system, or I have built this chatbot. So something like that, where you can actually use Python and data analysis and all these kind of things, so that your project is suitable both for a SD profile, both for a data profile. So this is something that you can do. The interviewer also knows that okay, you have done both kind of things, right? And since you have to build two or three projects, what you can do is maybe just one project could be about using the CRUD APIs and all, right? Showcasing your back end, front end, and database skills. Second project could be directly dedicated to your data field. Or if you are targeting something like very much specific to AI ML, then there are dedicated projects related to, let's say, image processing, computer vision, something like that. You can still explore. That is another good project to have in your resume if you're targeting those kind of roles, right? So yeah, that is something you can do. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
All
sorry.
right.
If you don't mind, can you take up my question? One question.
Okay, sure, Shreya. This will be the last question. After that, we will wrap up. If anyone has any other question, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever, any other platform. But we are already over time, right? Yeah, Shreya, go on.
Yeah, thank you. Ma'am, actually, I've started with DSA. Actually, I couldn't solve problems without looking into the solution. I could just complete half of the code and then rest I couldn't complete it. Either I couldn't do the logic or like coding implementation. What should I do more, ma'am? Or my basics are weak. Should I improve more on that? I'm really confused.
Yeah, Shreya. So let me tell you, this is very normal. Don't think that you are lacking somewhere, or you are the only one who is facing this kind of problem. There are many students who face this similar problem when they're starting out. What I would say is still keep on doing, right? Maybe one problem you were not able to solve that problem, see the solution. What you should do is okay, I saw this problem, okay, I am not able to solve this problem, I saw the solution. Now try two or three similar questions to that question, see if you are able to solve it. Okay, so that is one approach that you can take up. Let's say I'll give you an example. There is a question about duplicates in arrays. Okay, find all the duplicates in this particular array. You can solve this question. Let's say a similar question to this is remove all the duplicates in the array, right? Then another thing is you are given an unsorted array in which you have to do it. The similar variation could be you are already readily given a sorted array in which you have to do it, right? So same problem and different, a little bit of tweaking here and there is what you can do for the same problem, and then see whether you are able to solve it or not. Second thing is that yes, I understand when you are beginning, when you are a complete beginner, when you are starting off with DSA, it's not really easy to think, to build that logic, because you have not done that before, right? So it's okay, see the solutions, watch the tutorials. After a specific time, when you come back to the same question, you will be definitely be able to do it on your own, right? There will come a time when you will be able to think and you will be able to code it on your own, okay? Even if it's taking time for you, it's perfectly fine. Let it be, let it happen that way, okay? Just that solve more questions on that particular topic which you're not able to understand, okay? Because
Sure,
practice
ma'am.
is all that will help you to ultimately be good in DSA, okay?
With this, as we have come at the
Um,
end, I
Thank you.
request all of you to switch on your camera so that we can click a group picture, and then we shall wrap the session up pretty quick. So everyone, like you have like 5 to 10 seconds, and then if anyone wants to come in the frame, they can, and then we can click a picture. And obviously do share about your experiences and this amazing mentorship session on your LinkedIn, and don't forget to tag our amazing speaker and our community. Okay, we would love to hear your experiences, your feedback on LinkedIn. Okay. Okay, anyone's more coming? We'll be waiting for you, and then we'll click a picture. Ma'am, you can stop sharing the screen so that we can click a picture.
Sure, just a second. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So yes, say cheese, and thank you so much for coming. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming today, and special thanks to Akansha ma'am for coming and solving all the queries, and especially that five steps framework is like the very valuable resource that could help all the girls in their career. And thank you so much, ma'am, for coming.